Welcome, Dandelions, and thank you for joining me. This is Laurie of Laurie's Heirloom Sewing, and I'm kind of straightening up my sewing room. We're still working on the jacket, and of course, as you probably know, I have about 15,000 other projects that I'm trying to do that I really want to get to. Today is a re-engineering of a skirt that I will be making with some old vintage fabric that I found for my younger daughter who requested it. But I need to straighten up a little bit. Yesterday I was making fabric by, strip piecing fabrics together to kind of help clear out my stash. So I guess in a way it was stash busting, just using old pieces of fabric. So I have two small pieces here that I can use for a sewing room project. I really like it. I like the idea. I don't like throwing fabric away. And to be honest, while I do take some of my fabric to Goodwill or other thrift stores, lately I've just kind of been, I don't really feel like going. So right now, I'm putting pattern pieces away that I've already used in the creation part of the jacket. So what I want to do is I've already gone ahead and pressed, but when I'm putting pattern pieces back in the envelope, what I like to do is fold the pieces so that when they're in the envelope, I can see the pattern number. So I have pattern piece number 11. And the reason I do that, and I do try to do it every time, I don't always manage. There might be a piece or two that I just stuff back in there like we all are known to do on occasion. But if I'm putting it away after I've made the item and I'm not just in the process of creating, then I probably will have put the pattern pieces away in this manner. Now sometimes I will take a Ziploc bag and I'll fold all the pattern pieces and press them like this with the pattern numbers out. But I don't put them back in the envelope. I just put the envelope in the front part of the Ziploc bag with the pattern pieces behind it, just to kind of preserve that that envelope. And this particular pattern piece, I have folded too much. I don't normally fold them to this size because that's a little bit, it's hard on the pattern to be folded up that much. The paper is a little bit stronger than you might realize, but the constant folding, unfolding, pressing, folding, unfolding, it gets a little hard on them. And of course I do press because I want to make sure that the pattern piece I'm placing on the fabric is the correct size, and every wrinkle diminishes the size. It might be microscopic, but it is definitely a change in the size of the piece of the pattern. So, and will affect how, the cut of the fabric. And it can make a big difference. Most items, a small crease or a fold in a pattern piece, maybe not so much. But when you add them all together, if the front left of a blouse had a 1/4 inch wrinkle and the side and back had a 1/2 inch, by the time you get around to the right side, that's a huge difference in, you know, in what you're actually creating. So I do press all of the pattern pieces when I'm putting them away, and then before I put them on my fabric, I'm going to take them out, unfold them, and press them so that they are nice and flat. Okay, I heard my phone buzz, which might be my daughter. She's coming by for... Oh, nope. Okay. All right. So, we really are getting very close to finishing up this jacket. I'm really enjoying it. It's very cute. I love the prints that I chose for my sister. I think she will enjoy wearing it. But since I chose to discuss this today, I just want to reiterate that if you have your pattern pieces put away in such a way that you can thumb through them you can see the pattern number. You don't have to completely unfold the pattern piece. It might really help if you are in the process of making this. This particular pattern absolutely will benefit you if you do it this way, because there are so many pattern pieces to create the jacket. I mean, almost every single solitary piece, with the exception of the back yoke, is split into just a multitude of different pattern pieces. So if you've not marked a piece, if you wanted to mark it, if you wanted to mark the fabric, if you wanted to purchase a piece of fabric or you didn't know how much you needed, or you couldn't remember where it went or whatever, having the pattern pieces visible on the numbers, I mean this way right here, there we go, makes it a lot easier in the process of looking for that pattern piece through the envelope. Even if you have to take them all out of the envelope and just scatter them out, you know, on your sewing table, you can still easily see without having to unfold the pattern piece. Each one is numbered and visible. It's also rather cathartic to press them. I find it very soothing. I like having my sewing room tidy, and this pressing the pattern pieces also makes putting them in the pattern envelope that much easier. When I had my shop in Kansas, we would have stitching events, and this was one of the tips that the guest speaker was talking about on a particular evening. She also suggested that once, now I mean we could be ridiculous and put them in the order, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. However, that's not going to help you in the creation of the garment because they're not often used in that order. But as you can see, they do very nicely just slip right back into the envelope. And then press the envelope. And it's literally almost like a brand new pattern. I mean, there's going to be some wrinkling, like this little corner down here. Just press that out. They fit in your storage beautifully. You know, they're not bulky. They're not going to take up more space than they should. So, you could even press out your instructions. Now, the second thing I do is with a permanent marker, in other words, not a heat erase or something that's going to end up invisible. I write on here, and yes, I do. I write on my envelope. You know, if somebody wants to borrow this, I'm happy to give it to them to borrow. But I'm not going to try to sell this pattern. That's not something I would do. Now, if you're planning to sell your patterns, by all means, keep them absolutely pristine. Don't write on them. I don't have a problem with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write cut out at XL size cutting lines. Now you might think, why are you being so specific? Well, the reason that I'm being specific is because I would know my own shorthand. I would know if I wrote I cut out on the XL size. But somebody borrowing it might not know, for example, that there are differences in those cutting lines. So I wanted that to be very clear. It seems ridiculous, but it could make all the difference if you're trying to make a pattern. And you won't have to think to yourself, oh, I wonder if she cut it out on those lines, or if she varied, or if this XL line is the correct XL line, because you know they do cross over and they do blend. Now, the second thing is you can make all kinds of notes on here. This is, you know, for in my world, this is mine. So I will write, please trace other sizes. And that note is for me as well. So I know, okay, I'm going to leave this cut out on the largest size. And if I want to make a smaller jacket, then I need to trace that pattern. So now I have my information on here. I'm all good. On the inside up here, this is where I write my name. Okay, so my name is on the inside of the pattern envelope, not the flap. The flap can be easily removed. I mean, really, to be honest, any piece of this could be easily removed, but I always just write it on the envelope part. Okay, so that has been dealt with. I knocked over a whole bunch of pattern pieces over here. I'm trying to drown something in a cup of water. What is that? Oh, some tape. Okay. Nice. Let's see if I can pick this up without... Okay, so this is the tote bag portion of that pattern, which I've not cut out yet. So I'm not going to fold it up and put it, you know, press it and put it away. My plan is that I will be using this to make the tote bag. So I'm just going to leave these out. They were pressed when I cut them out. And then I also have the applique pieces. These I won't be using, so I'm going to put those back in the envelope. This is part of the tote. I believe there were quite a few. That's the tote. This is applique, applique, and pocket for the tote. Okay. So all that goes back in the envelope. And this is the straps. I probably won't use this pattern piece, but I'm not going to put it away because I want all the tote bag pieces put back together. Okay. So now these applique pieces can also be folded. They've not been completely cleanly cut out because I chose not to use these in the making of the jacket. We both, my sister and I, just felt that it would just be too busy. Some might find that to be absolutely perfect, but I did not, nor did she. Okay, I'm going to write the number 19 up here in this area that eventually gets cut off because I want to fold this pattern piece in half like that. I have all of the numbers facing up. I'm going to press. Now you might be tempted to just fold this over, press, and stuff back in that envelope, but that's kind of defeating the purpose because, especially with an applique or some type of decoration, you may really need to pull it, the pattern piece back out to get some more detail information, to reread the instructions. You may really need to pull this piece back out of the envelope in the process of making the garment. So I want all of these pieces visible individually as well. So they go back in the envelope. And now if I need them, this one's too wide. If I need them, they're available to me in a much easier fashion. And you can do the same thing if you trace your pattern and create an envelope. That should not be a problem. Okay, I'm still cleaning up my sewing room, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold up my excess fabric. I haven't decided about the sleeves yet. I may completely recut those out of, I've got so much leftover fabric, and I might wish to use the pieces that I cut for the sleeves for a different project. So, with all this excess fabric, I think these sleeves would be a lot cuter if I had cut those from these pieces. Okay. So that's a much neater stack of fabric. I can just set that aside over here. Right. Because what I'm trying to do is give myself some extra space today to work on the skirt that I'm going to be re-engineering. But I don't want to lose track of the pieces of fabric that I need for the jacket. And that's the sort of thing that I had in my other sewing room. I had like stations where I could have multiple projects. And unfortunately, I have sort of become used to that. And that's not really working very well in the new house sewing room. I don't have multiple stations. Now I'm trying to get to my buttons over here. Okay. Alrighty. This is the roller for lights. Okay. Well, that feels 100 times better. So now I have the skirt. I don't want to take the skirt apart. It is not something that I can take apart and then use as a pattern. This is the fabric. I bought this on Etsy, oh my gosh, maybe in July, I think. And then this is the skirt. I don't know if any of this is showing up. Let's try it like that. Okay, tilt the camera. There we go, I think. Okay, so this is the vintage fabric. It is a pinwheel or baby whale corduroy with a daisy print. And it was an inspired purchase. My daughter asked for this because I happened to find this, which is exactly the same. I found this at a vintage, or excuse me, a thrift store here in Everett, and it's just this little bitty piece of fabric. I don't even think it's a yard. It might be. But as you can see, it's a little bit more vibrant than what I ended up getting on Etsy. Oh, and this was shipped to me from England. But the flowers are similar, but somewhat, there's a little bit of variation and of obvious color change. This is much darker blue, and the pink is a little bit poppier. The pink is very muted. The flowers are very muted, but I think that was printing. I don't think it's age. Okay, so she saw this in my stash and asked if I could make a skirt out of this, which obviously I was not going to be able to do because there's not enough fabric. And this particular skirt has 4 pockets. While it's a teeny tiny size, there still just isn't enough of this fabric. Now I may use this fabric to make the back pocket, this little pocket right here, because it would help that, pop, but I'm not sure. The second thing, it's got a placket with buttons. It has a waistband. It's a fairly simple little teeny tiny skirt. So I believe what I can do is just trace I'll button this to get a truer size, and then I'll unbutton that to create the pattern for the placket. I think it's kind of a fake placket. No, it's an actual placket right there. Okay. Alrighty. So the front would be created from 2 pieces. There is a seam, of course, right down the middle. And then we have 2 side seams, one here and one here. So there's a front piece here, a front piece here. It has a pleat. Let me see if that's a pleat or a dart. That is actually 2 darts on each of the front pieces. So there's a dart here, a dart here on both sides of the front. So when I'm cutting out these pieces, I'll need to add that as well as the seam allowance. And then on the back, we also have 2 pleats on both of the back. This is a seam that runs down the back, so the back is also created from 2 pieces of fabric. So 2 pieces on the front, 2 pieces on the back, a set of 2 darts on either the left and the right side. There is a fold over waistband on the interior which is very simple to do, by the way. And then the placket will be created and added. I believe that is stitched right there. Yep. Okay, they are both added. They are not created from pieces of fabric that are cut that way. And then we have two pockets. The outer pocket is, let's see, the outer pocket finished is 7 5/8 long by 7 inches wide. So 7 5/8 by 7. And the inner pocket is, let's see if I can catch it from the inside. Yeah, I can measure from the inside of the skirt along the seam line, or the stitching line. I think you can see that maybe right there. Okay, so it is at the bottom 5 inches wide by 5 and I think 5 1/4 inches long. Okay, and I mean I can kind of take some liberties with that. So the thing is though, I want to make sure that I don't mess this fabric up. So I'm going to create a pattern using paper, and then I'm going to cut out a mock-up. I have some fabric I can use for that. And I'll just pin the mock-up together. I'm not going to stitch it. I might stitch one set of darts just to make sure that this measurement is correct. But I could also just, pin them. That would work as well. So the next thing I need to do is find my tracing paper, which is, I had my hands on it 2 days ago. Oh, here we go. Is this it? Yep. Okay. Now when I put my tracing paper away, it often gets wrinkled around the edges, the cut edge that I used the last time, and sometimes the top edge. So instead of just discarding that, which I've seen people do, and no, that's not for me. I just give it a quick press. All right. So there's the tracing paper. Now I will tell you, I have had this roll of tracing paper for 20-something years. It was huge when I bought it. I don't remember where I purchased it. I think it might have been through a wholesale supplier, because I had my shop and I ran a lot of classes. So we often used tracing paper to work on our projects. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is trace the basic shape. Okay. And this is just in case she needs her skirt back. And if she wants her skirt back, I can give it to her. I don't like what I just did, so I'm going to tidy that up. Okay. All right. Then I'm going to put this underneath. Line it up with the marks I just made. I'm just using a regular lead pencil, nothing fancy. Now, if you had a light box, this would probably be a good opportunity to utilize that. But I am just going to, by touch, trace around this placket and the pleats. So I kind of have an idea. And then a hemline, I'll just kind of dash that off. Right. And she's got 4 buttons across the front, so that would be evenly spaced. And the first button is exactly 1/2 inch from the finished edge. So I can put that as the buttonhole. Start is 1/2 inch. Okay. All right. So that's kind of a basic outline. All right, so I'm writing it's the skirt front. I'm going to say match pleats. I know there are pockets on the front, so I probably, yeah, I think what I'll do is mark 1 set of pockets on the front. So I'm just lining up the skirt with the edges that I drew, making sure that the pleats are exactly where they're supposed to be. It's the top, okay. There we go. And now I can just kind of trace where these pockets are. I just feel like they go a little bit overboard, but I think that's what she likes about this skirt. It's a little on the, it's got kind of a 70s vibe with these big pockets that are just kind of hitting you right in the face. There we go. I'll have to measure because that's not straight. So on the skirt, oh, and I see there is a bigger gap on the right than there is on the left. So on the right, that gap is 1 inch, and on the left, that gap is 1/2 inch. So on the right, the little pocket would start here, and on the left, it would end here. Okay, and it comes up out of the pocket. Seven eighths. Okay. 7. Okay, so we are here, and it does dip down in the front just a wee bit. So we'll have to get these pockets a little bit better than this. But that does look a little better. Okay. So this is 1 inch. This is 1/2 inch. I don't know why, but it works. And it's that way on both sides. All right, the pleats are how long? Quite a length from the waistband. They start and they go all the way down behind the pocket, and they end. To use this ruler, I can't draw a straight line today to save my life. Okay, that's the pleat. Get the other side. It's actually a dart. I'm not seeing pleat. It's a dart. We have 2 of those. I'll just write pleat since I did it on the other side. Okay, so we have 2, which I will also mark.